Alright guys, what's up? I'm Spanky Games, and today I'm going to show you guys, or attempt to show you guys, how you can go about learning pretty much any character in a fighting game. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to make you an expert with any character or every character. The idea here is you can essentially pick up a game, understand roughly what it is exactly you're trying to find, and use that for essentially. So if this ends up helping you, or you end up finding this useful, consider liking and subscribing. The more that you do, the more it helps me out. The more that you guys help me out, the more I'll be able to help you guys and others out. Also, if you guys end up liking this so much, you guys want to talk with me or get some coaching from me or hang out with other great Tekken players, consider joining my Discord. All of those options are available, and other things. So if that sounds like something that would be up your alley, we'll be more than happy to have you. But with all that out of the way, let's kind of go ahead and get started on today's topic. So why am I doing this exactly? Well, there's a couple reasons, but the main one is, like, I have a few like brand new players coming into Tekken on my Discord, and I figured that this might help them as well as, say, other new Tekken players, is the general idea. Whether you're brand spanking new and looking to pick Hwoarang up or a new character up, or if you're a seasoned player, say you're purple ranks, maybe even the blue ranks, and you want to dabble in a secondary character, but you don't really know how to go about starting to learn that character, that's what this is going to help you out with. And if you're not very good at, like, say, changing up your playstyle, say you play Hwoarang a lot and you find yourself kind of always defaulting to pressure, and your opponents always seem to know how to deal with that, this is going to help you kind of just slow down a little bit, throw out maybe a few pokes here and there, try to throw your opponent off a little bit, and kind of go from there. So that's the general idea. So this isn't going to be a video for everybody, but this should help a lot of you guys out, especially if you find yourself having difficulties in certain situations. This should be able to help you out a little bit. Tekken, at its core, is still a fighting game. Yeah, it's not as fast-paced as a lot of fighting games. It is 3D, so there's movement and sidestepping involved. Jumping isn't super big. However, it is still a fighting game. And just like with any other fighting game, you have your pokes. Say in Street Fighter terms, you have your light attacks, medium attacks, and your heavy attacks. Or in Mortal Kombat, you have your normal attacks, your low attacks, and your overhead attacks. Same idea, same concept. However, Tekken is a little different, where instead of light, medium, heavy, we have high, middle, and low. So you want to find, and yeah, if you go through Hwoarang's move list, it can be kind of intimidating going through 150 moves to sift through while you're trying to figure out what moves you want to use. This is taking a while. That took a while. That was a good long while. So you want to, if you go this route, it should be a lot easier to determine how to essentially at least get started with the character. So you want to find something, say, like a high jab. The quickest jab you can find is typically going to be your one jab. It's usually going to be 10 frames and +1 on block. However, there are going to be characters like Jack, for example, who don't have a 10-frame jab. He does have a 10-frame move. However, it is punishable on block. So most people are not going to opt to use it once they know the frame data. We're not going to really focus on frame data. However, we do want to focus on the fact that the startup frame is a little on the slower side. You have to keep that kind of thing in mind. So for Jack, your best high attack would be your 2 instead of your 1. So once you've found your high poke, you're just going to go for a mid poke. In this case, down forward 1 is a perfect move for us. And it's only -1. The reason that's a big deal is because this does have extensions, and most down forward 1s with extensions are usually not -1. And not every character has a down forward 1. Most characters have a down forward 1, but characters like Claudio, he doesn't have a generic down forward 1. He does have a 15 frame down forward 1. It's only -4 on block, so pretty good. But we want to try to see if he has something a little bit faster. This is typically going to be your fast mid check. For Claudio would be his back 3. Still -4 on block, so you can still sidestep, and it has extensions. So it's a typically a good idea to have that kind of thing in the back of your mind while you're looking for these pokes. Other characters like Feng, for example, may not have a typical down forward 1 as well, and it might be a little harder to navigate as to finding his quick, safe mid. But he does have a 12 frame mid in the form of back 4. Now it does give up his turn, it's -9, but it's still safe. And the trade-off is that it gives up his turn, but it's faster than your typical mid. So then you're going to want to try to find your low poke. This is, for Hwoarang, is going to be his down back 3. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. So not every character has a generic low poke like that. Usually it's going to be like a low kick like this, or sometimes you might have to do like a full crouch, something of that situation. But for the most part, it's all relatively the same. A character like Steve, if you were to try to go for this, it's not the worst, but it doesn't really give you a whole lot, and you have to be like right up against your opponent to do it. So a better attack might be, say, like his down 1. It's -2 on block, which sucks, but it's a low. Or you got your down 2, it's a nice little low, and it has an extension in case your opponent does end up blocking it. So it makes it a little bit harder to deal with. So keeping all that kind of stuff in mind, you know, with other characters and whatnot, it's all still pretty generically the same. It's just you might have to be a little bit more or less creative with the stuff that you're looking for. But that's going to be our first 3 attacks. It's going to be your quickest high attack, your quickest mid attack, your quickest low attack. None of them are going to give you anything spectacular. They do have extensions, but we're not really worried about that aspect right now. And they keep you in the fight. As long as you have those 3 core moves, that's really all you need to get started. But then you're going to want the next set of moves. This is going to be a second high, mid, and low. They might have a little bit extra risk to them. They may not give you a whole lot of reward out of them. But this is something that maybe does a little bit more damage, or is just kind of gives your opponent something to be afraid of, for example. A solid high for Hwoarang would be his 4-3. It's a pretty good high. It's 11 frames to come out. It has the extension, so, and that you can cancel and all that fun stuff. Again, we're not going to get into all that today. But the whole point here is that you have a high. It's very quick. It's 11 frames, so it's essentially almost as quick as your one jab. You have extensions. It does good damage. It's safe. It's -6 on block, so you give up your turn. But I will gladly give up my turn if it means I get to continue being safe. So then our mid is going to be, say, forward 2. It could be anything. You could pick down forward 4. It could be anything. But for this case, we're going to do forward 2. It's very safe. It's only -2 on block. It does put you in a new stance, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But the main concept here is that it is safe, and it is a mid. This is essential when it comes to dealing with opponents that like to crouch. This will be your godsend. And then a low, maybe a little stronger than your down back 3. Same level of risk. This has no more extra risk involved, except for the part where the sidestep might telegraph what your next move is. But as long as you're not being predictable, or you change up your timing even, you should always be able to get this sidestep 4. You just simply sidestep, and then you hit the 4 button, or right kick. So that's something to keep in mind. So now we have 6 moves. We have a 1 jab, we have a down forward 1, and we have a down back 3. Just a simple high, mid, low poke. Then you have a high poke, a mid poke, and a low poke. Or with that does a little bit more. Now the sidestep 4 doesn't look like it does anything fantastic, right? Well, if you guys pay attention to the frame advantage on hit after this attack is only -1. There's other properties involved, but we're just going to focus on the generic stuff for right now. And then the sidestep 4 leaves you at +5. And your opponent is stuck crouching, which means their options are going to be a lot more limited. And at +5, there's not a lot they can do. So if they do try to challenge it, you could probably learn to use that advantage. But we're not going to get into that right now. So those are going to be your 6 main attacks. You can get very, very far with just these 6 attacks. But for the case of completing a character, there are 4 more attacks that we're gonna want to try to keep in mind. Okay? The first main thing, the 7th attack, is going to be your quickest, easiest, safest launcher. However, whatever that might be. Some people are lucky enough to have a down forward 2 that's pretty safe and generic. Other characters, a character like Azucena, she does have a 15 frame down forward 2, but it's not safe. It's -13. That's not typically something you want out of a down forward 2. So you're going to want to have to try to find something a little bit easier, where this up forward 4 would probably be a better option, because even though it is slower, it is safer. And then there are going to be characters like Lars, for example, who does not have a 15 frame down forward 2. He doesn't really have anything outside of this orbital and up forward 3. And the problem is the orbital's a little on the slower side, so it's not too hard to get hit out of it. And the up 4-3 is extremely minus on block. So what do you do instead? Well, 2 characters that I can think of off the top of my head, Lars and Brian, actually have a 14 frame standing launcher. The problem is it takes a little bit of execution, but they are there. And then there are going to be other exceptions like Zafina. They're not going to have a typical 15 frame down forward 2. Some of them are going to be a little bit slower, like Zafina's or June's that are 16 frames. Or Leo is another example. Their fastest actual launcher is 16 frames, and there's just nothing they can do about that. But they get other strengths in the process, like the trade-off. But for the most part, it's all generically the same. And in this case, we're going to go for down forward 2. Now, once you find your launcher, whatever it is, find something, some kind of combo. It doesn't have to be anything fantastic. Just get some kind of damage. It don't matter if it's 30 damage, 50 damage, even something like this. It's better than nothing. If you get a down forward 2 or something of that nature, Find a combo. Find one that you can do in your sleep. And you're good. So that's going to be your 7th attack. Your 8th attack is going to be a grab. This grab can be anything you want it to be. For Hwoarang, my best suggestion would be forward 2+3. This is going to be your right punch and left kick at the same time while holding forward. The reason I suggest this attack, this grab over all the other attacks, is because no matter what stance you're in, you will always have access to this grab. So no matter what, it's there. And it does not matter if your opponent can break the grab or not. As long as they have that threat in the back of their mind that you will try to throw them if they get lazy or they're blocking too much, you're going to tell them that regardless of how much pressure you're throwing out or how much they are throwing out, if you feel like you need to, you will grab them. And if they're being too aggressive and you're grabbing them, they're going to want to have to slow down, because if they accidentally hit the wrong button while you're throwing this out, then they're not going to be able to break it because they're going to accidentally hit the wrong button. Now, Hwoarang, luckily, has a full grab game. So you can kind of take your pick as to what grabs you want to do. My best suggestion is to try to find a command grab. This is a grab that requires a specific break. Like, you have to push a specific button to break it. As you can see, the move that's highlighted right now, if you look all the way to the right, under where it's highlighted, you say throw, you can see throw, escape, and then it shows the right punch button. That's important because if your opponent accidentally, say, presses 1+2, once you have your hands have made contact with them, if they hit any other button other than 2, any other punch button other than 2, they won't be able to break the grab. And then you have characters like Shaheen, who he does have attack grabs. These are moves that are still essentially attacks but can be blocked. But if they do land, they become a grab. A few characters have this, like Nina. Generally, like, counter hit moves are pretty common in this situation. You don't want those kinds of grabs. But a character like Shaheen only has one command grab. So even though that is the case, if you wanted to play a character like Shaheen, I would still recommend highly to at least have that command grab in your back pocket, just to throw it out. So now we have a grab. So our 9th attack now is going to be a power crush. Now, every character's power crush is going to be different. Some characters are going to have high power crushes that are heat engagers. Others are going to have power crushes with multiple attacks in them. Some have better power crushes than others. Hwoarang actually has a lot of power crushes, but in this case, we're going to focus on his main one right now, and that's going to be his down forward 3. This move is bonkers, but that's not the point. The fact is that it's a power crush. If your opponent is getting up on you and getting too aggressive, I do believe power crushes come at about 7 or 8 frames. Like, the power crush aspect starts to activate at those frames. So say you do something like this and you're in a bad situation, they blocked it, you're at -2, you can try to throw out your power crush to see if you can interrupt whatever they're going to try to do. Or if they're getting too aggressive and you think that this will interrupt, try to throw it out. As I mentioned before, some characters like Asuka have, power crushes that are highs. It's safe, but it's a high. It is a heat engager. So it's a lot more useful, especially in the aspect that it's safe. So she can get away with a lot having a move like this. So then your last attack, so this is going to be your 10th attack, is going to be your panic tools. This is essentially your back one for Hwoarang. This is your get out of jail free card. Your opponent is giving it to you. You are lost, you're confused, you don't know what to do. A move like back one is a really nice way to get out of the way. And then you got characters like Devil Jin, who has a move like up four, which is really good for getting away from a character who's maybe using one too many highs, or you're just trying to get out of dodge. Something like this is really good for avoiding a lot of those situations. It's extremely risky. However, if you happen to succeed, then you can get something of a combo. The general idea here is that if your character has a panic tool, it doesn't really matter what its frame data is on paper. If it's something that can help you get out of a situation, you should have it in the back of your mind. If it is punishable, say -14 for Hwoarang, that is something you want to also keep in the back of your mind, but you have to also consider if it's worth the risk. And more often than not, it's gonna be. Sometimes you just gotta YOLO it and just throw it out and see what happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's also why it should, especially if your panic tool isn't safe. For example, Fang has a really good panic tool in the form of up 4-2. This gets him out of a lot of situations. And it's barely punishable at -10. And with that pushback, not even every character can punish it, even though it's -10. And then other characters like Jin, for some reason, have a very good panic tool that is actually safe. It ducks down, and he ducks down a little bit, and he sidesteps. Gets frame advantage on hit, and it's very safe at -7 on block. So some characters, unfortunately, get a little bit more than others, but if you have a move that's like that, if you see that there's a move that has like a sidestep in it, or it ducks, then that's typically a panic tool. Not always. Sometimes it's just a poke that happens to high crush or something of that nature. And in those cases, you just got to kind of bear that kind of thing in mind. But that's your 10 moves. That your character is now complete. So you have a high, a mid, and a low. A high that's a little bit stronger, a mid that's a little bit stronger, and a low that's a little bit stronger. You have your launcher, your grab, your power crush, and your panic move. And when you find your launcher, again, just find any launcher that works and get some kind of a combo out of it. It does not matter as long as it's a combo. And that's all you really need for your character. Now, if you guys want to get into more intermediate stuff, then stick around and follow along. However, if you're still new, or you're just going to try to grasp the first bit of concept, then this is probably a good stopping point. Everything from past this point is just going to add to the things you got to remember. So I would definitely suggest, if you're kind of lost here, maybe take a little bit, kind of get used to it, and then come back later for the other stuff. It doesn't necessarily get harder. It's just more stuff that you got to remember. But these 10 things are all you need to succeed. And with that out of the way, if you guys do end up sticking around, I'll talk to you guys in a second. And for those who end up feeling like they got to stop here, I'll catch you when you guys come back. Are they gone? Are they all gone? Good. I'm just kidding. For those of you who stuck around, or for those of you who came back, there's really only 3 more steps involved. So there's not a whole lot to dissect. This is just a few added things that you definitely want to try to keep in the back of your mind. It's more like, it's technically, if you want to call it 5 extra steps, it is, but 2 of them are kind of like grouped together with the other examples, and you'll understand why I mentioned that here in a moment. So for step essentially 11, the main thing is that like you might have a character like Huang with a bunch of stances. So you're going to want to find moves in those stances to either get you out of it or at least keep attacking or whatever your preference is. So for example, if I'm in right foot forward and I want to do, say, forward 2, that's not going to do it. Because forward 2 is just this little jab. It's high. So it's going to end up throwing me off. Or say I want to do 4-3. A different move comes out that is 4-3, but it's not the one that I wanted. So I might end up hesitating and backing off. Plus, this one is unsafe. So I end up doing it, and then I end up getting heavily punished for a move that I wasn't aware of. So what do you do in these kinds of situations? Like I said, like I was saying before, find 2 moves in every stance that you might find yourself in. Huarong has 3 other stances that you will usually find yourself in, and 1 other stance that you might find yourself in. The first stance you are usually going to find yourself in is going to be right foot forward. Now, in this particular case, I would use back 2 as a mid and down back 3 as your low. Note how the down back 3 is the exact same in right foot forward as it was in left foot forward. It's not always going to be the case, but sometimes a character will have a move that is exactly the same in a stance as it is outside of the stance. A quick example of this would be Yoshimitsu's 1-1. As you can see, with his sword is out, his 1-1 is this attack. Now, we're not going to focus on the properties that are changed here. We're just focused on the fact that I put my sword away, so Yoshimitsu is in a different stance, technically. And if I hit 1-1 again, the exact same move comes out. So, yes, the properties are different, and there's a little bit more to unpack in this situation. However, the key point here is sometimes you don't have to try to overthink the situation. Even though he's in a different stance, you can still throw out the attack. And we'll get into more of why that is relevant here in a few minutes. However, the main thing to note is that a move like down back 3 being the same exact move in one stance as it is in other is a little bit of a godsend. It's just that little bit less to have to remember. So then if you find yourself in left flamingo stance, this is where things get a little tricky. You still have forward 2. You only actually have to hit 2, but you can hold forward and you still get that same thing, which is nice. It's the same move that you got out of left foot forward. So if you find yourself in this situation, you know what moves you have. But then you need a low. So we're going to do down back 4 or down 4. Same move. And that's the key thing, is that regardless of what stance you're in, you want 2 moves, 1 mid and 1 low. If I didn't iterate that before, that's what we're looking for. Typically, we want it to be fairly low risk. It doesn't matter what the reward is. Like this down back 4 doesn't look like anything fantastic, but on counter hit, you get a free follow-up. So there's a little bit more reward out of that one and not too much risk. Being only minus 12, it's actually a little bit safer than even your down back 3 was. So there's that. And then in right flamingo stance, my fault, you have your 1, which is a mid. It's the exact same properties as your forward 2 or your left flamingo stance 2. But in this case, right flamingo stance 1, the only difference is between this is that you're hitting 1 instead of 2, and you end up in left foot forward rather than right foot forward. But it is still a good mid. It's still same frame data, so -2 on block and all that. And it's very good for keeping your opponent honest. And as far as a low is concerned, you have 2 lows, but we're going to stick with the safest one, which is going to be your down 3. Now, unfortunately, this sucks on hit. It's only -5 on hit. So it's not like your turn's essentially gone after using this. But it's only -13 on block, which is a big deal. Because the other low is a lot worse. So we want to keep it low risk. That's the main thing, is low risk. So we have this low. So again, in left foot forward, we don't need to worry about that 2 moves. In right foot forward, we have back 2 and down back 3. And at left flamingo stance, we have down back 4 and 2. And in right flamingo stance, we have 1 and down 3. So those are going to be your 2 attacks in every stance that you will usually find yourself in. And also remember that in all four of those stances, you have the forward 2+3 grab. That's very important. Don't forget about that. So you actually now have 3 attacks from every single one of those stances. But now there's the last stance you might find yourself in every now and again that you're not going to want to just stand there. Here's where I say you have a lot of moves you can choose from, but there are 2 main attacks that I would keep in mind. It could be either kick button, it does not matter. It is a launcher. It will launch them. Find this, find your combo. Then find your low. In this case, it's going to be down 3. So, and I'm testing this now. I'm hitting down back 3 as if I was in right foot forward or left foot forward, and I still get that low. So it's still very nice. Now it doesn't look too good being -2 on hit, but the reason why this is okay is because on block it becomes a launcher. So pretty decent. And if you give your opponent a reason to duck while your back is turned, then you'll have more opportunities to launch them while your back is turned. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So this is kind of one of the exceptional steps, I guess you want to say. I consider it to be more like 11.5 rather than a 12. If you guys disagree with me, then feel free to let me know in the comments. But this is still very important. When Hwoarang is in left foot forward or right foot forward, a lot of players they can't tell what stance they're in. And I can tell you to look at his arm to let you know what stance he's in. However, one thing to keep in mind, and again, not every character is going to be like this, but most characters will have something that's similar. But in this particular case, Hwoarang has a small handful of moves that he can use from both stances with the exact same input. Being down forward 1, down back 3, down forward 2, and his grabs. His forward 2+3 grab. Always remember that you have these 4 attacks. Again, other characters, you're probably not going to get this lucky. When it comes down to it, in my opinion, when you're learning a character, I would avoid stances altogether. But if you find yourself in these stances, it is good to remember these things. So in this case with Hwoarang, he has these 4 attacks that he will always have access to in both stances. He has other attacks as well, but we're just keeping it very short, very simple. So those main 4 attacks. And then so for our 12th, I guess, category is going to be a homing move. Before we did mention at Power Crush, but we're more or less trying to get ourselves out of pressure in that situation. In this case, we want to find a homing move, because regardless of whether your opponent is pressuring you or you're trying to get in, a lot of this is still a 3D fighter, which means there's a lot of sidestepping. Moves can whiff based on how your opponent moves. So you want to remember that he does have a homing move out of down forward 4. And this is with any character. You want to find your homing move. He also has back 2 or up back 2. And right foot forward, he has backlash or down forward 3. These are all homing moves. They all have the same. If you try to sidestep me, this is still going to hit you. So, and that's probably as important, if not more important, than finding power crushes in this game. But from a beginner's perspective, I would focus on the power crush first, and then worry about homing moves later. That's just my opinion, my suggestion. So, 2 moves from every stance that you might find yourself in. That's your 11th step. Your 12th step is your homing move. And then the last step, your 13th step, is going to be find your heat stuff. Find essentially your superpower. In this case with Hwoarang, you come down here, you come down to move 5, and you go through all these moves and you find out. And for the most part, you're just trying to find out how you can use these tools, or that these tools exist, and make sure that you can do them. You just want to make sure that you can, in fact, do them. Once you've established that you can do them, then it becomes how to use them. But again, we're not really worried about that. Just know that they are there. And the most important thing is just remember that you can just activate heat and you can just use heat. Those are always going to be options. And then the 13.5 is going to be your rage. The reason this is not a category in and of itself is because every single character in the game's rage art is the exact same input. So and it's a power crush through and through. So, say my opponent does... Note how that still hit me. I still absorbed it. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you have that rage art. But also keep in mind that every rage art is minus 15. So most characters in the game will be able to launch you for it. So that's the trade-off. It's like ultimate protection, but it's super punishable if it gets blocked. So a quick summary. Now, I don't know Azucena. Azucena is not a character I've been playing all that often. I did pick her up about a day ago, but that was just for fun. That was just to kind of test my theories before I started making this video. And so far, I'm doing pretty all right, all things considered. So again, you want to look for that high, mid, low. So high, mid, low. Now, I did find this, and I was like, I don't want a move that puts me in a stance. Down, back, 4 works. Yeah, it's minus 3 on block, on hit. Minus 14 on block, which sucks. But it's a quick little low poke. It does the job that I need it to do. So then we want a high, mid, and low that does a little bit more. Now, unfortunately, this is really the only option she has if I don't want to go into a stance. But then there's still this down, back, 3. Works. So that's going to be my heavier low. As far as a heavier mid, I like this down forward 4 because it has an extension. If they want to attack into me, it's fairly safe. It's minus 7. It does what I need it to do. As far as the high is concerned, I like 1+2. It seems to have a little bit of a high crush property, and it is a counter hit launcher, which I didn't really know that at the time, but I ended up learning that in the middle of a fight. It was nice. So then so those are your 6 attacks. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So as far as a launcher is concerned, I went for down forward 2 before I found out it was minus 13. So that's probably something I would want to avoid. Better one is up forward 4. It's 24 frames, so it's a little on the slow side, but I can still get pretty consistent combos. And that's all I need. You know, I can even keep it a little bit simpler. So there's my launcher, there's my combo in that launcher. Grab, she has up forward 1+2, and I think and she has down 1+2, which is only breakable if they crouch, which is very interesting. She also has a crouching throw, which is not something to rely on, but it is there. So there's your grab. It's going to be your up forward 1+2. As far as a power crush, forward 1+2 works. And then a panic tool, she has up forward 2. This is a little bit, you know, not the greatest, but you know, it's safe. It gets her out of dodge when she needs it. And it works. So there's your 10 main steps. Those are the tools that I've been using with Azucena as I've been trying to learn her. And then step 11, this is 2 moves from every stance. So there's this stance. The 2 moves I've come up with is 1+2. That's my mid. Or if you want something safer, there's the 2 option. Well, let me think. It's safe. And as far as a low is concerned, there's either the 3, which puts you back turned again, or if I want to go for a heavier one, I can always go for down 4-4, which is essentially her health sweep. That might be a little bit on the riskier side, so I'd probably just do the 3. And then her other stance is back turn. It's a big stance for her. So I need a mid, which is this 4. Doesn't seem like a big deal. It's a nice low. It's a nice mid. And a low, 3 again. Yep. You can literally just go back and forth. So, one mid, 1 low from each stance. That's all I need. So, again, got 2 and 3. From here, I got 4 and 3. That's all I need. I don't know if there's anything similar in these stances, but either way, in her regular stance and this stance and back turned, she has kind of a quick little jab situation. So that's always nice. The 3 options seem to be pretty much the same. They'll get me a low if I need it, for the most part. So, pretty good ideas, but for the most part, I got my 2 attacks from each stance. So then I need my homing move. This, for her, is going to be forward 4. There might be something better, but I feel like this is fine because there's extensions as well. So it's really nice having those extensions, because if I just throw this out and I notice my opponent is attacking into me a lot, I can either continue with the heat engager, or I can go for a different attack altogether. Those are all options. So then the next category is going to be her heat stuff. So, you know, go into her move list, go down to heat, activate heat, use my heat burst, or whatever heat engager. Then, you know, the attacks to enter heat. Oh. You know, so she has like moves with special properties. For example, you know, so she has a little bit more going for her when she's in heat. So this is something that I'm going to want to try to keep in mind. And kind of keep going with that. And again, last but not least, remember that you have a rage button. This is the same for everybody. Oh, my bad. You just got to learn how to use it. That's all. Does that teach me the character? No. No, it does not. I'm definitely going to want to take the time to learn the other aspects of the character, but these are essentially the 10 moves plus 5 minor categories to try to keep in mind while I'm learning the character. Every character has heat, so all you need really is the heat engager and the heat burst. The rage is the same. Keep it simple. If they have stances, it's better to avoid those stances until you are comfortable with the beginner starter stuff, but it's still good to know what your options are if you find yourself in those stances, because you don't want to find yourself in the right flamingo stance and not know how to get out of it. So if you happen to accidentally do down 3-4, you want to know that you can just hit 1 and get out of it real quick. And that's gonna be pretty much it as far as learning a character is concerned. Again, you can pretty much take this and apply it to any character. Again, there will be exceptions depending on the character, but at its core, all of this is the same for every character. So just take these concepts, apply it to your character if it's not already Hwoarang. If you are a Hwoarang main who's struggling to find like pokes and whatnot to try to slow down from pressure, these are moves that I would suggest using or learning to use. And use these moves as your foundation to play the character. And then use pressure as the extension rather than the other way around. And it just ends up being easier. And with all that out of the way, again, I do apologize if I ranted a little too much or if I got a little off topic. But I do hope this helped you guys out. I hope you guys learned something. I do appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out and learning. And I hope you get something from this. But with all that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and hop off here. Thank you guys for joining me and hanging out. Take care of yourselves. Happy gaming and peace.